Racism has always been at play in my life. And my mother's always said, control what you can control. Understand that you can become anything that you want to be. You're not the first, you won't be the last, but you owe it to yourself to be the best version of yourself.
Stand by.
3, 2, 1. The following program comes from executive producer Lilian Garcia. Every athlete is on this quest. Every performer dives in head first, battling real-life challenges and overcoming obstacles in an effort to make their dreams reality. Singer, speaker, and 15-year WWE host Lilian Garcia was the first woman to ever announce WrestleMania and is now the PFL MMA cage announcer. And now she's giving you an all-access pass to the human interest stories of elite athletes, extraordinary entertainers, and wellness experts. Now, let's embark on another fascinating journey of chasing glory with your host, Lilian Garcia.
Welcome, guys, Chasing Glory, and this is a very special episode because I'm doing something very, very different, and it is based on everything that has been happening in our world right now and the death of George Floyd, but it's also not just George Floyd. It's the years and years of this suppression and the injustice that has been going on, and I've been speaking about it because I have a lot of friends that are African American. I don't see race, I don't see color, and this has never been an issue with me ever since being born. So I feel the pain, though, that they're going through, not as a direct feel. I will never understand 100%. But when somebody is hurting, I feel that pain. And I process it as something of, I've got to do something. What can I do? And I'm trying my best. And I know that I'm going to make mistakes. And apparently, I have already made some mistakes. And I've been called out for it. And in this episode, I wanted to bring my really good friend, Brian Johnson, on. He and I have been friends for a while now. And just getting to know his story and his own pain of what he's endured with of years at this. But he was one of the first that I called when all of this happened. To be like, wow, Brian, this is, what a time. But he was actually excited because he says, I feel like change can finally start happening. So I'm excited for that and to be a part of it. I wanted him on the show. And then I also wanted to bring in two people. One of them definitely called me out online on Twitter. And the good thing was she was following me. So therefore, I could actually DM her directly. And she and I started a conversation. And in that conversation, it turned from her being angry at me to then understanding where I was coming from. And then I got the idea of bringing her on and then bringing her friend Cameron so that we could get the perspective of more and more people. And then when there is somebody that is angry with someone else, we could discuss it in a way that is constructive. And so first, I'm going to be bringing on Brian, and then I'm going to be bringing on Genesis and Cameron. So to tell you about Brian is just an amazing person. He's quickly become one of the most inspirational thought leaders of our generation. And he has overcome, though, his own personal challenges, including being homeless and dealing with intense depression, which almost caused him his own life. He credits escaping that tragic moment with giving him clarity about his purpose. He has since dedicated his life to inspiring others to overcome fears in their own lives, that they can also deserve to live a life and realize their own value and potential. He has a book called Live Your Dreams Out Loud. And like I said, just an amazing human being that I want to go ahead and bring on this so that we could have the time that this deserves. Okay, so without further ado, here is Brian Johnson. Let me bring him in.
All right, Brian, I'm so excited to have you on. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me here. And thank you so much for doing this, Lillian. It means a lot to me to know that you're using your platform, your voice, and your existence to speak to currently what's going on right now in our climate. So thank you so much for having me.
You know, I say no need to thank me. Like, this is just the right thing to do. So I hope that more people do this. However, I am not going to lie to you. This has made me very nervous. I'm scared to say the wrong thing. Apparently, I said the wrong thing on, what was it? Saturday was right in front of me here started the protest. And we were filming it. And I mean, it started beautiful. It was amazing. And then as the day progressed, it started where there's flames coming outside of the Grove. There's flames down the street. I was getting really scared. I'm like, what is happening right now? Something so peaceful turning so violent. And then the next day, CJ and I went and started walking up Melrose and seeing the burn, the places that were burned, seeing the store owners in tears, and hearing them going, we had nothing to do with George's death. Why did we get hit? Why take it against us? We had nothing to do with it. To then hearing some people talking about how, well, it's just material things. I mean, they can replace that. A life was taken. So I wanted to bring you on because when I was saying that I said the wrong thing, apparently, I made a post. The day before I posted all about the protest. I'm for it. Even before that, I was speaking out. I did the hearts with all the different hands, colored hands. And even before that, because, Shad passed away, my really good friend, African-American, the photo that we took there from the funeral, I mean, there was just diversity. It was so beautiful. So I was, talking about the diversity and how gorgeous it is. And then because I shared photos of the fact that there was burning and said, I'm all for the protest, but I'm not about violence and, using violence and all. And then I put hashtag all lives matter. And that's when I started getting when I say hate, I mean, people were literally calling me white trash. And I was like, wait, what did I do?
Yeah.
And then I got educated on the Black Lives Matter, why that's important. And we'll talk about that. I was like, okay, so then I added Black Lives Matter, but then I didn't take the All Lives Matter out. So then I ended up taking all the All Lives Matter out because I was like, dude, if this is so painful,
right,
I'll do whatever not to cause more pain. So I took that out.
Right.
Since then, I've still posted. I even did the square, the black box, but I put hashtag Black Lives Matter. And now that was wrong too, because that screwed up the algorithm. So I edited it out. But apparently I found out today when I logged on that because I didn't take it down and put it back up, that was wrong too. I have to be honest. I'm a little bit like, whoa, maybe I should. And this is how some of my friends are feeling. Maybe I shouldn't say anything because I don't want to do the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So help me, Brian. Help me. Help all of us that are trying to help.
It's a lot to unpack. You're essentially talking about 400 years of what's transpired from up until this point. And I think, God rest George Floyd's soul. This is the first time that I think the world is actually seeing the pain up close and personal of what happened to George Floyd. I mean, anybody that's human, to see that man laying on the ground, crying and pleading for his mother, and we know how sacred the Black woman, the Black mother is to Black people.
Yeah.
For you, this is, let me just say this, with Chasing Glory, with what you're doing, no matter what, Lilian, you're going to always get some backlash for doing good, whatever. And I know where your heart is. I know you. You actually sent me photos that day when the protest started from your balcony. It was peaceful protesting.
Right.
I think the challenge is here is that Black people are tired of being told how to compartmentalize their anger. It's like, just let me be. And we tried peacefully protesting and we see that didn't work.
Right.
But let me also be really clear. The trouble for me here is I've spoken to some cops, some LAPD cops, and some other cops from around the world. This is not Black people that are just doing the looting. These are groups that are coming in using this as an opportunity that's really taken away from the situation at hand. So I think also, Lilian, what you're going to hear is a lot of times when Black people step up, when things like this and issues happen, and we say Black Lives Matter, then here come white people saying, no, all lives matter. And we're like, no, if all lives matter, there would be no Black Lives Matter movement from the beginning. So the biggest thing for us right now is thank you again for having this conversation, because there's a lack of education. There's a lack of understanding, and we got to have these tough conversations.
Yep.
And thank you so much again for having this platform. And listen, there's going to be some disagreements. There's going to be some things that's really uncomfortable. But in order for us to grow and bring about true change, we have to have these conversations. I
totally 100% agree. And I'm glad you touched on something, the education. Okay. Because I am sure, and this is what I've been hearing from African Americans saying, you should know this. Black Lives Matter. Like right now, it's all about that, right?
Right.
But it's also the way it's being said. Here, I and many others have had the best intentions saying Black Lives Matter, all life matter. Like we're trying to say, hey, we're all in this together, kind of. And then when we're being educated about it, it's being done in a sarcastic way, like, you idiot.
Right.
And that then goes, oh God, right? It's like, it makes you feel bad. And so all I'm saying is, let's have the conversation. Let's educate each other. But can we do it a little bit more, like, less sarcastic and whatever, and just try to think that people have the best intentions? Yeah, I think fundamentally Black people, with that particular statement, because a lot of my white friends have told me, listen, I inherited this. I don't know where this, like, I'm having to deal with something that I inherited. Right. You know, that's how I'm feeling. But I think because when you're born into white culture, you think that white people understand Black culture, when there's a huge disconnect. Yeah. Black people understand white culture better than white people understand Black culture. Amen. Yes. I agree. And so I think the expectation, coupled with the trauma, the frustration, the angry, and what's been transpiring for so long, there's an expectation placed on white people that you should know this. If your skin is lighter than mine, can't you see what we've been dealing with for so long? I expect you to know. And so the problems and the challenges here, we have to do a better job of educating and not being frustrating, because we haven't healed properly. And that trauma runs deep. We're talking about 400 years of what's transpired from 1619 up to here. That trauma runs deep. We got to do a better job of educating not only white people, but Black people too as well. We are all in this fight together. So we got to do a better job of educating each other. Yeah. Sure. I also think on top of that, this COVID pandemic has not helped. People have been in their homes, either locked or they've lost their jobs. I mean, we had 3% unemployment going into this. And then all of a sudden 40 million people are unemployed. And, you know, even though I have this platform, everything that I had is gone. You don't see sponsors on here right now, right? You don't see, I don't have the PFL. I have zero income coming in right now myself. I get the, oh my gosh. All right. I'm going to be real and honest right now, because that's what I believe. I don't want people thinking, she's, and by the way, people are like, you white woman, what? I'm Hispanic. Okay. Let's just be clear. I've had my share of being discriminated against. I will never say it's as much as an African American. I will never say that. But I had my own pain that I don't know what to compare your pain to my pain, right? Pain is pain. For sure. Pain is pain. I think, again, going back to what has transpired, I honestly do believe, as hurtful as this is really a healing for humanity. It's also a healing for Black people, because, again, I think for the first time, our voices are really being heard. Now, let me give you something really tangible here. As a Black man, for being 37 and growing up in Alabama, Lilian, for the longest, I felt like my whole life has been in a pandemic. And I feel like that I live in two different worlds. There's my world, the Black world, and then there's society. And I have to adapt to society. So a lot of times I'm trying to figure out how to navigate certain things because of the systemic oppression and the systems that are placed where I can't really thrive. Now, me, myself, I don't live by that mindset. But the truth of the matter is that it is there. So I think
for us, I will say, and I can't speak for all Black people, but for myself, it feels really good to be heard. And it feels good to know that other people are kind of forced into the direction to even hear me speak.
Right.
Because you know me, I'm the most diverse person that it is.
Yeah.
And I'm always trying to find ways to educate. So it's a beautiful situation in the midst of this chaotic situation, or what can be perceived as chaos, for us to be coming together, joining forces, hearing each other out. And everything is not going to be perfect from the start. We have to continue doing the work. Chasing glory. Glory is all about finding the beauty. And this is what you're doing. So listen, it's going to be, get ready, buckle up. There's going to be more. This is the road that you and I chose. So thank you so much for it.
Yeah, it is. And so I can't back down because I know that I have a purpose. And if I'm going to be hit along the way, I'm going to be hit along the way. I'm tough. I've been hit before, but I want people to know that I'm trying to come with the right intentions and with the right heart, and to really use this platform and anything that I say for positivity, and so that we can make the dream that Martin Luther King had and all of you have a reality.
Yeah. The truth of the matter is, Martin Luther King was killed when he started switching from talking about poor people to economic, empowerment and economic freedom. Martin Luther King was the most hated person his last year of his death. And a lot of people don't even know that. The man that we celebrate so much, he died broke, and he died broken. Wow. His family couldn't even pay for his own funeral. The man who had this dream. It's just, there's so much that's like the disconnect that we don't know about MLK.
Yep.
I'm just challenging us to be better. When I think about the current landscape and the current climate, I think about these cops who just got charged. They're like breaking news. They just got charged.
Yeah.
Right?
I want to let people know it is Wednesday right now, so that if anything happens from now to Monday when this airs, and I'm sure so much is going to happen, they realize that we are not touching on it because it is Wednesday right now, and that's all we can talk to. But yeah, breaking news.
Breaking news. We just saw the cops get charged. Although 3 of them have lesser charges, and the cop who actually committed the murder, he's been upgraded to a 2nd-degree murder. But it took all of that just to get conviction. That leads to a lot of frustration,
Yeah. Now, I know that, look, I've heard from the family, by the way, condolences to the family.
Yeah.
Because not only did they lose someone like that, just seems so loving, but all of this as well. And, his brother has come on and said, please, I don't want any of this violence. Like, this is not what my brother stood for. So please, this is not, don't loot and then say that you're doing it in the name of George Floyd. Right. So I wanted to bring that up because I thought that was a beautiful thing for him to say. But I know that they also wanted 1st-degree murder. And what I understood is that if they stick with that 1st-degree murder, then it might be one of those trials that they don't get the conviction because there's not enough to really say that he premeditated this, which we understand that's what 1st-degree murder is.
Right.
Do you think, though, that people will be happy enough if he does get convicted, which he should, obviously, of 2nd-degree murder? Do you think that will be enough for some people that we're looking for 1st-degree?
I mean, whatever the maximum is, I think that's going to suffice. I mean, they've already burnt down the police station in Minneapolis. So I think we're looking for the maximum. I don't wish death on anybody, but I think a lot of people who saw that man get killed, I think they're wishing maybe the death penalty. I don't necessarily know what the laws are in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
But I think whatever the maximum sentence is, he should get. And I don't think people are going to rest until that happens, because it's not just George Floyd. It's Breonna Taylor. It's Ahmaud Arbery. It's everybody that we don't even know about that's getting killed. Thank God for these cameras that we at least did get a chance to see this, God forbid. But it's I think the maximum sentences is what people are going to want.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about the cops, because it just so happened I had my guest MVP on the show last week. And this is a man whose family, his father's a cop. He's got family members that are cops. He, at 14, joined a gang. At 16, he was convicted of robbery and kidnapping. Well, and he explains kidnapping. He put the person in the closet while he was robbing, and that's considered kidnapping. He served, out of 18 years, he served 9.5 years in prison. And so he gives his perspective of that to then his perspective of also the cops. And he said, look, I know, I mean, there's things that will appall you with the cops say. He goes, but humans fail. We know that humans fail. We also know that there are some good cops that have tried to, for lack of a better word, snitch or rat out the bad cops. And then they've gotten heat from their brotherhood, right? And he goes, you know, it's one of those things where next time, let's say Johnny's the one that is the good cop and rats out one of the other guys, right? Next time Johnny calls for backup, his buddies, brotherhood are like, let's just take a little longer because he ratted out one of our brotherhood, right? Yeah. So he said, and he goes, and don't think it doesn't happen. He goes, it happens. So that's the question too, is how are we going to get, because I don't like to put blanket statements on anything. I don't think that every cop is bad. I really don't. And I think more and more we're seeing videos of cops that are really trying, and they're kneeling and they're really trying to protest with the protesters and all. How do we, what's the solution then to this problem? How we get those bad cops out of there?
Yeah, I think this goes back to the origin of the cop gang. You know, I mean, fundamentally, when you think about cops and the way that this was constructed, and you think about the amount of people of color who have been killed from when cops were even, this whole term of the cops came about, it's really tough to discuss because we don't understand how long this has been transpiring and the cop gang. Because when Black people see cops, when I see a cop to this day and a cop is behind me, there's all kind of things that come up, and I'm asking myself, is this going to be the last time that I'm going to be alive? There have been times that I've been pulled over in Los Angeles where, you know, cops come up to the car. First thing, their guns are out, and the first question they say is, you know, have you ever been arrested? Lilian, I don't necessarily have the best answer to this question, but what I will say is that they're good cops, they're bad cops. They're good doctors, they're bad lawyers. I mean, bad doctors, they're bad lawyers, they're good lawyers. They're good people, they're bad people in general. We're human. Right. But I will say in short, cops catch a bad rap because I think there's a huge disconnect between the people and cops. Yeah. We're not educating ourselves. I don't think cops are getting the best training. I think a lot of people join and become cops. And then once they get that badge, they think that they can utilize that badge to do whatever it is that they want. And the truth of the matter is, personally, I feel that a lot of people, cops specifically, who kill African Americans, that is deeply rooted into fear and hatred and racism at its core. And you can't expect just because somebody joins to be a cop that eradicates that's in them. You know, that just gives you one up to be able to carry through with that. You know,
I think that's the thing that we have to really talk about too, is people become racist. They're not born racist. And I know I've seen you post that before. I've seen other people post that. They were just not.
Right.
And I know that in my family, I was lucky enough where my parents they didn't tell me to fear anybody of color or anything like that. Where not all families do that, though. So you kind of learn it. Your parents are racist, and then you look at that and go, oh, well, I guess I should be racist. Right. You know, there's been some that have definitely broken that and go, no, I don't like what you're doing. But if it is passed down, you start thinking, oh, maybe that is the right thing to do.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, just like anything, if your father or your mother teaches you how to shoot a basketball, I mean, you're going to think that that's the right thing to do. I know for a fact, growing up in Alabama, you know, people were programmed and conditioned to think a certain way. And listen, for anybody that is listening to this right now, these are the tough conversations and perspective that we have to have in order to bridge the gap when it comes to what we're dealing with at large. And that conditioning and that programming, Lillian, has transpired, and it just evolved, evolved, and evolved and evolved. And it just becomes a trickle down effect. You know, it really does become this ripple. And if you don't deal with it, this is what you have. This is the society that we're in. But the truth of the matter is a lot of Black people feel as if that this world hasn't been, or this society that we're currently in right now, hasn't been set up properly for us to be able to succeed. And those who are racist will continue to be racist, and we will not be able to thrive.
All right. So let me ask you this, because I know that you've been very upfront. At Powerful You, we were on stage and you had a speech and it blew me away. And I wasn't expecting to hear what you said. And you said that you've been upset at people being racist against you for being African American.
Mm-hmm.
But then you realized I'm being racist to gays.
Yep.
Because I have a fear of gays.
Yep.
Which, by the way, thank you, because that was tough to say. That's tough to admit in front of everybody, right? What I want to know is, what's your relationship with gays now? Ever since you realized that, what have you done to not have a fear? Because where did that fear come from? Where did that come from? And what have you been doing? Because that same thing could be applied here.
Right. So that the mentality that I have, going back to the way that I was trained to think, it was the environment that I was in. I was told that that was not good. I was told that that was wrong. I was told that that was a sin. I was told that that wasn't an act of God. That was in my mind, deeply rooted into my mind, into my soul. I never actually stepped outside of that thought and independently thought for myself how those people feel, how people that are gay, or, you know, how, like, truly what they're processing. It wasn't until I went to therapy, Lillian. It wasn't until I really got down to the root and core to understand my issues and why that problem or that challenge or that thought was there for me. And so then it in turn went from therapy to actually having conversations and asking the questions of how you truly do feel. I don't know how you feel. It goes back to what you were saying. Like, it's a huge disconnect for us because we don't know. I started asking the questions to people who were gay and all the tough questions just to get a better understanding of how they felt. And once I did that, I mean, life changed for me. You know, life completely changed for me.
And for them, right? Because it's another person that's accepting them.
I mean, listen, I have so many gay friends right now. My mentor is gay. Like, it's just, it's the lack of awareness, the lack of understanding, and the lack of empathy and compassion for other human beings. Here I am being hypocritical, saying that people are racist against me, and I had my own racism and prejudice against people and wasn't even taking that into consideration. So listen, get down to the core of who you are and ask yourself, why am I thinking this way? I was told to think this way. I was told that these people were wrong. Get out of that, independently think for yourself, and get some therapy, man. Therapy is
everything. Well, because it starts unpacking everything and getting to the root of the fear.
You know, something else I want to bring up that I'll give you this. I've never really talked about this, but I'm going to put it in one of my next books. That also stemmed from somebody trying to touch me when I was younger. So when I went to therapy, that's what came out too as well.
Oh, okay.
And so we have to take into consideration of what somebody's experience may be to make this really tangible. Sometimes I get into an elevator with a white lady and it's just me and her. She may grab her purse. Now, the first thing I may say is she's racist, but the truth of the matter is it may not have anything to do with my skin color. It could just be her experience of what she could have had a bad experience when she was younger that triggers being in an elevator with somebody. I don't know. So we can't be so quick to judge.
Thank you. I think that's the thing. You led with it. I mean, it is empathy, having empathy. And before I bring Cameron and Genesis on, because I really want to get their perspective on all of this, I do want to say, and you know what, maybe I'm going to say this when they're on, because I think that this is important. All right, so Genesis and Cameron, I'm so excited. All right, here we go. We're gonna bring you in from let's bring you in from the waiting room. All right, guys, I'm so excited. Genesis and Cameron, welcome to the conversation. And thank you so much for doing this and being a part of this.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank
for
you.
the opportunity.
Thank you.
You guys are so cute. Can I just say something? You are all from Alabama. What are the chances of that?
I didn't know that. I knew Genesis was from Alabama. I didn't know Cameron was from Alabama too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are you at, Cameron?
Selma.
Are you in Selma? Okay. What about you, Genesis?
Selma.
You in Selma? Okay. I know a little bit about the 2-7.
Okay.
The 2-7.
He's in Skipperville.
Oh, really?
I've never
Yeah.
heard of that.
I've never.
Yeah, it's down by Ozark and Dothan.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm just glad that you all came about. Like, this is actually exciting. I said it at the beginning of the show a little bit about what happened Sunday, the post and Genesis, how you and I connected. But I'm telling you, my stomach was in knots. But now I'm actually grateful for that moment, because when it was in a knot and I started getting all of these messages and people are just like, I'm so offended and white trash and whatever, I was like, what is happening here?
Wow.
But it was because of that all of a sudden the idea popped in to DM with you directly. And then when you and I were communicating, and I said, man, I really want us to come together and do something, to have a conversation and to make an impact. That's when I got the idea. I think it was midnight. Holy cow, I want to do our show on Chasing Glory and actually bring you on. And then you told me about Cameron. And I was like, I've never done this before. But I think it's a good opportunity to speak. And I want to actually read the tweet that you sent out, because again, this is the one that I posted with the destruction when I said that my heart was going out to, the people who own the homes and the businesses, and that I'm all for the protests against George Floyd and everything so awful what had happened, but that I just didn't see violence being the way. And I took the hashtag off. Remember? I did take that hashtag because I realized it was offending. Okay. The hashtag, by the way, just to be clear, if somebody's like joining in later, the hashtag of all lives matter, and switched it to Black Lives Matter. Then you tweeted and you said, because you slid that hashtag off your post, but the post in general, wait a minute, because you slid that off your post, but the post in general is what disgusts me. You don't get to tell us what we should and what we shouldn't do when it comes to situations like this, because you'll never have to go through what we did. Delete that shit. All right. I want to give you the floor. And I'm wondering, do you understand where I was coming from? And I also, just tell me about what it was, what you were feeling when you tweeted this to me.
Okay. First of all, I just wanted to start off by saying thank you for not taking that in like a disrespectful way, because I didn't mean any disrespect at all. But when I read your post, it's because like as a child, I grew up watching wrestling. So I grew up listening to you ring announce all of my favorite superstars. So of course I became a fan of you as well.
Thank you.
So seeing that post made me feel like, wow, because you would think that you were on our side. And I understand where you were coming from as well. But it did hurt. I'm not going to lie. It did hurt. So also the addition of the All Lives Matter hashtag, and then you disagreeing with the rioting I wasn't okay with that. So I honestly wasn't even expecting you to see the tweet. I'm not even gonna lie. I was like, oh, wow, okay. So now I get to have this conversation with her and get her to see my side of the story and why I feel the way that I feel.
Yeah. I want you to understand where I was coming from with the rioting and the vandalism. Because I saw, for example, the people that were crying that they were losing their businesses, and they said, I had nothing to do with this. Why is it being taken out on me? I understand people have said, look, that's just property. Property can be restored. How are you so upset about property? But I think that people need to understand that to them, it's not just property. That's their life's work. That is their dream. That is, they're already upset because they had to close their businesses down for the pandemic, and they've, losing all their income from that. And you don't know, it's kind of like Brian and I were saying, you don't know somebody's situation. And because you don't know somebody's situation, it's easy to dismiss their feelings. But that person will now be so upset about the fact that, you know what, let me use this analogy. It's an abusive relationship, let's say, that I've had with a boyfriend. And the boyfriend's been slapping me and slapping me and slapping me. And finally, I'm fed up and I hit him back, right? That would be the response, that I want to hit him back. But instead, I go to the neighbor and I slap that neighbor. And the neighbor's looking at me like, what the hell did I do? And now that neighbor's pissed off at me going, geez, I didn't do anything. Why did she come over here and slap me? Does that make any sense in the fact that I just think that violence and destroying somebody else's property will then all of a sudden they will get so upset that it doesn't solve the problem because you slapped them when they had nothing to do with this issue. Anybody can jump in.
I get the analogy that you're trying to make, but I just can't get behind it. I feel like we were peacefully protesting at first, and we were not being heard. We were not heard until they decided, oh, let's burn down this Target or let's destroy this Starbucks. And then now we have everyone's attention. And I don't know if you saw this video or not, but it was a video that Keke Palmer made. And I wrote down the part that stood out to me about the rioting, if you don't mind me reading it.
Oh, please. Please. That's why we're having this discussion. I want to see all sides.
Okay. So I say, in the powerful words of Keke Palmer, she said, to those that may not be looking close enough, all they will see is looting or people that don't really care about the movement, or anarchy without a purpose. But what I see is a society responding to the oppressor how the oppressor has responded to us. I see no respect for the establishments because the establishment hasn't showed respect to the people. And I wholly agree with that.
Okay, Brian, I would love to get your point of view on this, because I know you and I have spoken that you don't feel violence is the way.
Yeah, I don't feel violence is the way. It's a very, that line is interesting because I wholeheartedly agree with what she just read. I think a lot of times, like, Black people are tired of being told how to act and how to respond, when essentially our entire existence, we've been resisted. And this is the result of what you get, whether, it hurts businesses or whatever, but the anger and everything that comes out is a result of being oppressed by the oppressor, to what she said directly. And I think it's like, even going back to the All Lives Matter hashtag, it's like, we don't want to hear that right now.
Yeah, I understand that now.
Let us just be, and let us get heard for the first time. And guess what? If shit gets torn up, then that's what it is. And if that's what it's going to take, that's just kind of how we feel as a culture, And it's not about hurting anybody. It's not about any of that. But I think when you have people in rare human form who've dealt with so much, the result of that is.
But what about even businesses that are being attacked and, between looting or burned down, that were owned by African Americans? And now they've interviewed some of them, and they are so upset.
Absolutely.
That's their life work.
I think that's been a part of the distraction. And that's, what's that, unfortunately, George Floyd's death is now kind of in the back, and the protesting and the looting. Well, the peaceful protesting is great, but the looting has pretty much taken over this whole situation. I talked to a cop the other day, and he said back when the Rodney King beatings happened, there were so many African-American businesses that went out of business from the looting and everything that transpired. And you got to think about it. We're already at an economic disenfranchise, and now we can't get loans, and it's just hard to start those businesses again, whether you're Black or white. Listen, it's tough to start a business. I get it. That's your dream. I just think the challenge here is that when you have chaos, chaos breeds anger, and anger can lead to a lot. And unfortunately, this is the situation that we're dealt with.
So, Cameron, I would love to hear from you.
Well, I totally agree with Genesis and Brian when it comes down to it. I would an analogy I would pretty much use for this is pit bull breeds. They've been stereotyped for I mean a long time. I mean, it's just like you use a pit bull, for the wrong reasons, and you constantly, you beat on the pit bull and you use them for fighting. And how many times can you hit a dog before he finally bites back? And now this dog, an animal, a dog has this pent up anger inside, and now he's just lashing out at everybody because of what one person did, that previous person did. And I feel like with the looting and the burning down, like Brian said, it's not the protesters, it's not all of us. Most of it is coming from mostly white people who are just using our protest to capitalizing on our protest just to destroy stuff, just to go looting, and then we get blamed for it. And the
Wait,
media,
are you saying that no African Americans are looting?
Oh, I'm not saying that. I'm saying,
Okay.
no, not at all. I'm saying, some, for the ones that did loot, for the ones that, I don't condone it at all. But at the same time, it's, like Brian said again, this world is, this country is broken, and we're really trying to, we really need to heal from a lot of stuff, heal from a lot of, built up anger and built up frustration that we have towards each other. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But like I said, the looting, I feel like, yeah, that was too far. Yeah, that was too far. But at the same time, I can't, like we said, you can't tell people how they're supposed to feel at the end of the day. But, at the same time, we really, we really need God in this moment. Honestly, I was talking. Oh,
I'm sorry. No, I can tell Brian wants to address that. I don't want, definitely hold your thought because I want to keep hearing what you want to say. But Brian, you've got Genesis who's 17. You've got Cameron who's 19. You had this video, I don't know if you saw it or not, this older guy who was in his 30s, and he was speaking to a 16-year-old, and he said, we haven't been doing it right. You're the next generation. Please, Brian, I can't speak to this.
Yeah.
Speak to it, please.
Real quick, I'll get to that video. One thing I want to say is we cannot discredit opportunistic thieves in times of situations like this when people want to come in and take advantage of this particular movement. That bothers me because some of these thieves don't have anything to do with what's actually currently going on right now.
And that I didn't know. When I posted that, I want to be clear about that. When I posted those pictures of destruction, at that time, it was not clear that this is about two different movements going on here. One for opportunity, opportunistic, I should say, and then the other one for the protest.
Isn't it interesting, though, too, as well? I don't know if you've had a chance to see it, but in most cities, there are bricks that mysteriously are just appearing.
Yes,
out
of nowhere.
Who's putting those bricks there? I think the challenge for us is that for me, working in Hollywood and understanding news and media and not getting so caught up into what I'm seeing, I always want to get to the core of everything. I just have always known that there was something else really, truly going on behind the scenes that we're not privy to. When you see bricks stacked up everywhere, it's like, what is this? Who's putting bricks here? There's no construction going on whatsoever. This has got to be all smoke and mirrors. Okay, let me segue to my second point of the man that we saw. What we saw three young men, African-American, who were standing there. And I think that one guy was 45, one guy was 31, and the other guy was like 16, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And the 45-year-old was like, I am tired. I am willing to die. I've just had enough. Now, he is a part of the baby boomer generation. He's a little bit older, so he understands, and he's been a part of maybe civil rights. We don't know what his struggles have been. The 31-year-old is a part of a different generation. The 16-year-old, He's millennial. You see 3 different generations. One is mad and ready to risk his life and just die. He's ready to end it. That's the 45, 46-year-old. The 31-year-old is like, that's not the way. We have to teach the youth a better way because everything that's happened up until this point hasn't worked. And we have to figure out more strategies and solutions in a very more pragmatic way to bring about change, because what you're talking about isn't just the way. We can't have this young man who's 16 have that same mindset, because that hasn't gotten us anywhere. And essentially that's what you saw on camera. And you see this 16-year-old, he's really intense and he's like ready to go out and do whatever. And the bridge here is the 31-year-old saying, no, we got to channel that anger in a different way in how we decide to put it out. And Lilian, that goes back to what you and I were saying initially about the way that we educate, the way that we approach certain things. We have to be fundamentally more strategic in how we go about doing stuff and not just operating out of anger.
Mm-hmm. What do you, Cameron and Genesis, hear from him? Like, what I'm trying to figure out, Brian, when you're saying that is, how do we help them? How do we help them in not using violence to get heard?
I don't think that they're necessarily condoning violence. I think what they're saying is that they understand what has transpired, but the youth have more energy and more insight to what's going on in a different way, just through the use of technology and the way that they communicate and having a different perspective. Because the truth of the matter, Lilian, so many of Gen X, they were not born racist. They don't understand this. Like, you know, some of them were born, they were 8 years old when President Obama was in office, or 6 years old. So they were pretty much born with a black president. Right. So the stuff that they're seeing is tied to, you know, the traditional way of how our country's been, and they are just not for it. So I think what we're witnessing here is the energy that Genesis and Cameron are giving. They don't stand for any of the traditional principles of how our country has been. And like I said, I don't think it's them condoning violence. It's just them understanding. And it's like, let us just be. This is the time for change. And we want to be the voice of change. And if violence has been a result of that, don't put that on us, because this is what you get when, you know, people that have been oppressed for 400 years and their voices haven't been heard. This is what you get as a result of that. Am I wrong, Genesis or Cameron?
You're completely correct.
You're right. You're right.
What ideas do you guys have? Genesis, Cameron? Like, I know, Cameron, you were about to say something.
I honestly, I'm all for peace. You know, like, you know, the protests that are going on. It's really a beautiful thing to see, just to see how our movement has reached across the world to many other countries and cities and other places, you know, seeing how impactful it is for other people to join in and get on their streets, you know, just to fight for us. And they're not even in this country. And, you know, like Brian said, we're not, you know, trying to condone anything or anything, but, you know, at the same time, this, like you said, this is a different, you know, generation, you know, like we grew up seeing one thing, and now that this is happening, we're just like, what's going on? Like, you know, how did it get to this? And now that we see how it got to that, you know, we're just like kind of understanding, but we're trying to balance it out. You know, I told my pastor, I was in small group, I was like, you know, I'm really just trying to level things out. You know, one minute I'm angry, but the next minute I'm just trying to understand, you know, and I'm trying not to be angry, you know, at police officers or what happened to, you know, George Floyd and Breonna and Eric Gardner and so forth on, you know what I mean? But, you know, like I said, this is just all that anger and frustration finally coming to the, you know, it was just the icing on the cake. Honestly.
Yeah. Okay. I'm loving this, because I'm understanding.
Lilian, it's sad that we live in a space where kind of like we are expecting for the next person to happen. It's like, you're kind of numb to it to a certain degree. It's kind of like, When's another hashtag? And we just hope and pray it's not us, anybody in our family. You don't wish death on anybody, but because it's happened so much, you just become accustomed to it to a certain degree. Like you're really much used to this happening. And the truth of the matter is that, like I said to you earlier, I don't know if Cameron or Genesis could hear me when I first came on. I feel as if with George Floyd, for the first time, the world has heard our pain. And so for the first time, people from all different backgrounds across the world are coming together to begin the process. And listen, change doesn't always equate to it being comfortable. And Lilian, I know you said at the top of the show about being uncomfortable. Well, this is the time to get comfortable being uncomfortable for you to really, really grow as a human being. I got a lot of work to do. Genesis has a lot of work to do. Cameron has a lot of work to do. It's not just Black people having a lot of work to do. We all got a lot of work to do. And this is why this is so important. You got to think about it. I'm 37. I'm sure there's 16, 17, 18. You know, like we all are learning from each other. This is so beautiful, and it's so needed. And Lilian, I can't emphasize enough how important it is for you to be doing this, and how much it means to me. And for those that are listening, listen, it's tough. You may have a different perspective and a different understanding, but this is fundamentally humanity 101. And anybody that's had a platform that has questioned whether or not they should speak up, you are part of the problem. You are part of the problem because this is humanity 101. Mm-hmm. That's it.
And that's why I definitely wanted to speak up. I can, because I also have a lot of friends, you know, that are African American, and I just absolutely love. And that's the only way that I've ever led with. Genesis, what are you feeling from hearing all of this? And what I know that you're getting ready to go to Alabama, right? College?
I am.
Yay, congratulations.
Yes,
and Cameron, you're in college right now?
Yeah, Troy University, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, I mean, you guys, this is awesome. I mean, it's not like, you're doing something with your life, you know, you're getting a college education. I hear, or did I see that you got a scholarship as well? Genesis?
I did.
Yeah,
I did.
That's awesome. So
Thank you.
Here's what I did. Like, when I was bullied really bad, when I came to this country when I was 8 years old from Spain, and I was an American, but, you know, being Hispanic, spoke Spanish, all that good stuff, I was made fun of immediately because I wore dresses to school and because I spoke Spanish. And immediately I was just branded. And it followed me, especially in school. Once you get picked on, that 1 year, it just, no matter what, it just every year, it's like, so hard to take that off. But I decided that I was going to study my ass off and do what I could control. And that is to choose my own friends. And if it was one friend, because I couldn't have a lot or whatever, then I was just going to focus on that one friend. And I was going to get educated as much as I could, and then just almost control that so that I could get ahead. Brian, you've done a really good job of getting ahead, working in Hollywood, carpool karaoke, all the other things, writing books, you know, doing the things that you can do. And Genesis, what you're doing right now, getting a scholarship, working so hard that you make sure you're getting into college. And Cameron as well. I mean, I think that's a beautiful thing. Would you say that that is also the message, to control what you can control and be the best you that you can be?
I think that can be the message, because sometimes we can get so roped into things that don't truly benefit us and that could throw us off to the wrong path. So I feel like getting your head on straight, figuring out what it is that you want to do in life can be very helpful.
I love that. Yes. Okay, go ahead, Cameron.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. You know, I grew up, and I remember being in the 5th grade, and my own teacher, you know, tried to flunk me, you know, and just, you know, and I carried that for a really long time, and I carried that anger and, you know, just that frustration, and I had to realize, and my mom had to tell me, you know, you control what you do, you know, you control your life, you know, if you want to make something of yourself, do it. I'm 100% behind you and supporting you, and you know that made me, go harder, go to school, pay attention, not be lazy, actually do something and, prove myself, to a lot of people who did doubt me, to a lot of people who did, to the teacher who did try to flunk me, but at the same time, just like Genesis said, we have an opportunity, to do what we're supposed to do and control our lives, take control of our lives and, use our education, our mind. Our mind is a weapon too.
Yes.
You really have to be, sane up here, and to understand each other and also learn things from each other and teach each other things. I think that's very important.
Whew. Wow. All right, Brian. Yeah, right? That was amazing. It's amazing.
No, I love
Mind
that.
is a weapon.
I love what you said about control what you can control, because at the end of the day, I've always been the person that, from the time that I can remember when I was 5 or 6, I mean, racism has always been at play in my life. Mm-hmm. And my mother's always said, control what you can control, understand that you can become anything that you want to be. You're not the first, you won't be the last, but you owe it to yourself to be the best version of yourself. And so keeping that motto, keeping that mantra as a part of my life, it's allowed me to thrive. And I've never for once even thought that just because of the color of my skin, I couldn't obtain something or I couldn't go and do something. I've never let that be a barrier. If anything, it's been more motivating to me than anything. But one thing I think that people don't take into consideration, and I think that we need to do fundamentally, people need to travel more. They need to get outside of their box and what they see, because I think when you are in new energy and different energy, you get a chance to experience other cultures, other way of living, your thoughts evolve, and it really touches you and takes you to be you at your core. You really get a chance to learn who you are.
Yeah.
So I love that. Control what you can control so you can be the best version of yourself. And Lilian, at the end of the day, when it comes to this whole makeup and episode that you're doing, you controlled what you could control so you could be the best version of yourself. And you have absolutely delivered by bringing us on to have these conversations to get this perspective and understanding. So thank you.
Oh, of course. You said something about traveling, and maybe that's why I never grew up with racism. I think it's a very important thing to point out. Being raised in Madrid, Spain, I traveled Europe like 5 times before even being the age of 5. But
right.
Always experiencing different cultures. My dad was in the army. He had nothing when he joined. He was from Puerto Rico. He had nothing. And he decided at, I think it was 17 years old, okay, I'm going to go join the army. And he then raised the ranks to lieutenant colonel. And that's why he worked for the American Embassy. And that's how I was there. But I think it's true, coming into America, that was the very first time I ever got discriminated against. It was crazy. I was like, wait, I thought this was the land of the free, the home of the brave, and then here I'm American getting discriminated against. So it was wild. But I always tell people, travel, and travel even more than just America. Travel to all over the world, in Europe and, Asia, and all, so you could see different cultures and accept different cultures. And I will say this. First of all, somebody's got to change their alarm, their battery alarm. I hear the alarm going off every now and then. It's so funny.
I don't know who that one is.
I think it might be mine. I don't know. But we're about to move anyway, so it's fine.
Oh, you are? Okay. Okay. But it's almost like this. I kind of like using analogies. But when people are so focused on their own race, I always say to them, don't you love to eat like hamburgers and hot dogs and pizza and chicken wings and like all these different types of food? And they're like, yeah, of course I do. Be like, well, when you're focused on one race and just accepting one race, that's like you saying that pizza is going to be every single meal of every single day. And that's the only thing that you're going to accept. And if you only do that, you're going to get sick of it, for one thing. You're not going to appreciate it anymore. And it's just going to be like not fulfilling. So for me, I'm telling people, don't accept just one race. Really diversify yourself. It is like having different foods. And I know it's kind of a weird analogy, but at the same time, I think it makes sense. Diversity, man, it is the spice of life.
Yeah, that's the only way we're going to grow and evolve as human beings. And I think collectively, when we understand that, we're in the same fight and we can come together and unite and fight for the same type of justice and bring out our ideas to the table from all different backgrounds and all different experiences, like that's where we're going to bring about change in so many different ways. That's personally what I believe. You touched on something a minute ago, and it's just kind of ringing an alarm for me. When it comes to travel, I have a friend of mine who runs this huge travel blog. And because you're from Madrid, Spain, to you say, I didn't understand it. There are so many people on the outside that are not American who don't understand what's going on right now.
No, they're looking at America going, wait, what?
They don't understand what's going on now. So
Yeah.
we have to ensure that we're educating other people from all different walks of life, we as the human being, because the problem is when going back to inception, we were separated, white and black. We were given those terms. We're human.
Yeah.
We're human.
I don't like having to check out. Even me, Hispanic was not a box. It wasn't until like in the 90s that all of a sudden they put that as like a race. It's not.
Right.
So I'm like, wait, but I'm just, to me, I consider myself white because I am white. But I was like, wow, you're really more separation and more separation. Why do we have to have all those different boxes and not just human race? Check.
Right. Exactly.
To back up about what you guys said about traveling, I have an uncle he's from here originally, and he did not hesitate. Like once he graduated, he didn't hesitate to leave Alabama. And whenever I get the opportunity to speak with him, he's always like, there is a whole other world outside of Alabama. And I don't get out of Alabama much. So I haven't traveled much. No, I haven't. And he's always like, the minute you get the opportunity, get it, run with it, go for it, get more experience, get to know other cultures. And honestly, I can't wait to do that one day.
Are you going to the University of Alabama?
I am.
Okay, so they have this study abroad program, and we can talk offline more about that, but I'll give you all insight because that's where I went to college at. And I did the study abroad program, which is so interesting, Lilian, because I went to Spain and lived in Spain for 6 months. Nice. Right? So, yeah, we'll talk about that offline, Genesis. But, there's so many. The great thing is that you're going to a place in an institution that has so many resources affordable for you to be able to get outside and see the world. And it's a beautiful thing.
Well, you made me tear up. I got chills right now. Like the thought of this connection right here, making it where she could actually do that. And even Cameron, like I'm sure he'll tell both of you. You know what, Brian? You should even post that things like this, like ideas for the African-American community or anybody else really who doesn't think it's affordable, right? Because the first thing that I'm sure some people are like, oh, it's great you're saying to travel. How the hell am I supposed to make that happen?
Well, it's even deeper than that. I'll be completely transparent with you as I do. And I got to stop saying that. But my dad, who's 59, my dad has never been on a plane. My dad has never been outside of 2 or 3 states, maybe Alabama, Georgia, Florida, maybe Tennessee. And so it's very tough for me sometimes to listen to perspective from him because he hasn't seen a lot of the world. I respect him a lot, but you haven't seen the world. So sometimes your thoughts, your actions are deeply rooted into what you've seen and what you've experienced. And so for the African-American community, it's more about not being it's about being able to get outside of what you see. That's why Harry Belafonte always emphasized taking kids from the hood and outside of Chicago, because there's so many kids in inner cities who don't go outside of those cities.
Right.
That's all they see is their environment. So, I think for me, for what I'm doing, when I travel across the country, I always give some sort of speech back to kids. And I always try to emphasize the importance of travel a lot. Yeah. And I think now that you're even talking to me about this, I'm challenging myself in this moment to put out more video content about the importance of travel
Yeah.
and what it does for your mind. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, and something that just popped in my head is if you cannot afford, this is to anybody out there that's listening to this, if you cannot afford to go to Germany right now or Spain or anything like that, you can log on and you can look at videos from those different countries and see the culture. Like you can say Spanish culture and just type that in and get all these videos of so many shows that have been created that they give you the tours of them and learn that way until you can actually, get the means to get there. And there's some places, Brian, even I've done that. I haven't gone to Greece yet. I'm dying to go to Greece.
I think it's fundamentally about our priorities, because Cameron knows this, Jenison knows this. We'll buy some J's. We'll do everything else. We're gonna make sure our hair good. We're gonna do everything, nails, everything. But when it comes to prioritizing, because that's not a part of our culture. So we have to invite that into our culture, and it's up to individuals like us to be having these conversations and to expose this. That's why it's a group now that says like Black women travel or Black people travel, because Black people are even starting to encourage each other to get outside of what you currently see and see more, open up your eyes, because there's so much world out there.
Yeah.
That is an actual movement that is actually going on right now.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. For Cameron and especially for Genesis, because of the way that you tweeted to me, would you go back and tell me differently? Like, would you go back and actually rewrite this in a different way now that we've had this conversation?
Honestly,
would you still tell me to take that shit down?
I honestly apologize for that. I was honestly upset. I would take that part off, but I would keep the part up that says you don't have the right to tell us how we should react to like everything that's happening. But I would take the ending off because that was out of line, and I apologize for that.
That's fine. I appreciate that.
But I do thank you for using your platform, because if I'm not mistaken, you have like almost 1 million followers on Twitter, almost 1 million on Instagram. So therefore you have this large platform where you can speak out and you can raise awareness for everything that's going on. And everyone isn't using their platform. So I do thank you and I appreciate you for actually taking the time out of your day to use your platform. And I thank you for even bringing me here, because I'm not able to go out and protest. My mom isn't going to let me, even though there are peaceful protests, you have cops that are turning them into violent protests for unnecessary reasons. So I thank you for actually making me feel like I have a voice and I can get how I feel and my information out there, rather than me tweeting to a couple of people who don't care, or me on Instagram posting something to a couple of people who may or may not care.
You do have a voice.
Genesis, the fact of the matter is you can't go out and march. What you can do is utilize this internet platform and Twitter and how you've been engaging with Lilian and everybody else. And I went back and looked at some of your tweets. You can use this platform to organize and bring awareness. And I think that's really critical. I think in these particular times, it's important for us to channel our anger and our frustration in a more productive way, because lashing out, and I get it completely, because I have to process certain things when I see it. When you see these images, they tap into your emotions and you're like, fuck, like I'm ready to just explode. But then I ask myself, how can I be a little bit more productive with my thoughts and my skills and everything that I know to channel this energy and frustration into another way? Because if not, I might end up smacking somebody. So I think for us, what we have to do is be a little bit more careful and intentional on how we decide to advocate and bring awareness to this issue, because we have an opportunity right now to really inform and educate the world in a very, very collective manner. And I think that's where our energy needs to be.
So I think that's also a message that I want to send to whether you're Hispanic, anybody else that's African American. If you are getting some kind of I wouldn't say hate, because I didn't see it as hate. I saw it as you're angry at me. But if you're getting that, not to take that personal right now, not to take it personal, understand where the pain is coming from. And that's when I saw this, I was like, there's rooted pain here. And I just wanted to reach out because I'm like, I want to get to the bottom of how can I help in this cause to start taking some of this pain away, where then the lashing out doesn't even have to happen, because you're not going to be angry anymore, because these situations will have a resolution.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Can I say something too? I think that we're missing out on, when she first came on and she said that, the first thing she said was that when I saw that, my anger was born out of, I've been watching you, I've been following you, you introduced some of my favorite wrestlers. I thought you was one of us.
Right.
So we got to go back to the core of why that even came out. And it was because she said she thought her feelings were in alignment with yours, and she realized that they weren't. So she spoke out of frustration because she saw you as the opposition of what she's been experiencing her whole life, which led to her spewing out those thoughts in that particular moment. Okay.
And now, Cameron, I want to just make sure. Do you see that I am with you?
Yes, ma'am. Most
not
definitely.
Cameron. I'm sorry. I meant Genesis.
Oh,
but I'm sorry. I said your name, but Genesis, just because we're talking about you, do you see that I am with you?
I honestly do. The moment that you DM'd me and you wanted to get an understanding, I was like, okay, your intentions were right, and maybe they came out the wrong way. And I was like, okay, I can understand that. And I do believe that, I believe in changing your opinion or changing the way you think when you're given new information on things. So yes, I do see that you are with us.
Now, let me ask you this, though. Do you still want me to take that post down? Because there's a reason I haven't taken it down. Like, do you see that post as an attack against you? Or African Americans?
Simply because you removed the All Lives Matter hashtag. That's part of what truly bothered me, because I feel like we're protesting Black Lives Matter, and you come around and you throw in All Lives Matter. And I feel like saying All Lives Matter is a protest to Black Lives Matter, because we never once said that all lives didn't matter.
Right.
But right now we're focused on Black lives, and Black lives cannot matter. Wait, all lives cannot matter until you realize that Black lives do matter.
Yep.
That we can't continue to be overlooked, or you can't continue to ignore us, and you can't continue to kill us and everything be perfectly fine, because it's not. But getting back to your post, I do feel like you can have your opinion on the riots, and I can have my opinion on the riot, and you're welcome to keep your posts up. But I do thank you for removing the All Lives Matter hashtag, because that did truly bother me. And yeah, I was honestly hurt by that.
Okay,
Lilian, there are a lot of white supremacists. When the Black Lives hashtag, which was even born out of Trayvon Martin getting killed back in 2013, when Black people step up to say Black Lives Matter, a lot of white supremacists say, no, all lives matter.
Okay.
And so that frustration, that's the disconnect. So if you're talking about the riots and then you're saying all lives matter, it's like, oh, fuck it. You're on the other side. Like, I'm about to come at you. That's the feeling and the emotion. That's what you're getting and what you're experiencing, because that all lives matter negates anything that Black people are trying to fight for.
I hear that. I want you guys to know that not all white people that are doing that know all of that. Again, it goes back to the education.
Right.
And I don't think there's, all these people that I think even, there was, I'm not even going to say her name. There was somebody else from WWE that posted something with MLK's quote and then put all lives matter. And I was like, uh-oh. Now that I know. But look, I think bottom line, as we wrap all this up, I think we need to have a little bit of patience in educating and understanding that, yeah, you guys have been dealing with this for a long time. But I will say this, I had a call with somebody from Germany before we did all of this, and he and I were talking about the situation. And I said, I want to get your perspectives from somebody in Germany. And we touched on this, Brian, that they're like, what the hell, right? I said, but you got this from Jewish people, didn't you? You know, and he said, yes, but not anymore, because all our schools, they have a lot of education as to what happened with the Jews and the Holocaust. And because we grew up with that and we know the travesty of it and all of the history and everything, we don't have these kind of racisms against Jewish people. But I think it's coming down to, in schools, it would be really good if they showed the education about why this is happening, but also patience in while people are learning it.
Absolutely.
And to back up on the education part, I remember yesterday when I spoke to CJ, he was like, and thank you for educating me and Lillian. And I was like, really? Like, you're telling me, a 17-year-old Black teenager, thank you for educating you? And that's when it registered. Okay, maybe they don't know everything that's going on. Maybe they don't know the history of it. Maybe they don't know the background of it. And I know as far as school goes, they only teach certain things in history, and they don't necessarily back up the African American studies. And my 10th grade year was my very first time like fully digging into African American history and dating all the way back to the Egyptians and everything. Like, that was my first class that I've ever had that actually mentioned anything outside of just slavery or things of that nature. So, yeah.
So that's where I think a lot of the focus should be too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Cameron.
I totally, agree with everything you guys have said. We also, live in a world where the media kind of twists things to where people,
You think?
to where people only see a certain angle, or to where people, this side sees one angle and this side sees one angle. And I think that's where the discommunication came from between you and Genesis. You're saying, looters and rioters, and then, there's all these other videos, there are peaceful protests, you know what I'm saying? Like, people, there are two different sides, and, there are two different views, and, the media can like really twist that and, make it into their own and cut out certain things. And another thing that really came to mind, sitting here and listening to you guys, I have to constantly remind myself, during this time and during everything that's going on, even before this happened during the quarantine, being in the house, all day and, sitting there, it becomes really depressing, and seeing what's going on the news and going on social media and just seeing your timeline just full of, cops just tear gassing and just, tearing, just really going at peaceful protests. It makes you very depressed, and it attacks your mind. And it's a moment where the enemy can sneak in and he can attack your mind. But, it's a scripture that comes to mind, and it says, perfect love casts out all fear. And I truly believe that, that perfect love that, everybody's looking for, and that's one thing I always tell myself, what if everybody, what if they're just looking for love? Everybody just needs to be loved. Everybody's looking for love right now. And I think that love that everybody is looking for can only come from God,
And not only can we get love from God, but from each other. Right now, I feel a lot of love right here. A lot of love.
Yeah. I love it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And you guys, I always end the show saying, go out there and live with much peace, love, and passion. Remember to always be yourself and trust that it's enough. And I think that now more than ever, that is so true. We all have to trust that we are enough and that we're all trying to lead with the right heart and just unite. So here's to unity, baby.
Love you all. Thank you so much.
Love you.
This is Chasing Glory with Lilian Garcia.
Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you guys subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss a single video or live stream. And definitely share this with a friend. All right, follow the show at Chasing Glory on Instagram, at Lilian Garcia on Instagram and Twitter, and Lilian Garcia official fan page on Facebook. For everything Chasing Glory, just go to chasingglory.com. Until next week, go out there and live with much peace, love, and passion. And remember, always be yourself and trust that it's enough. Mwah. See you guys. Bye.
Thanks for joining us here on Chasing Glory from executive producer Lilian Garcia.